Okay, the agenda for today is we're going to cover a couple of big things today. First, the flashcard about progressive elaboration, and then second is a very big topic, Agile Manifesto. This is the core of Agile. We'll go over all the Agile values and the 12 principles. Okay, so there are 4 values and 12 principles, and we'll look at each one of them in detail. And finally, we will conclude by going through some practice questions just to see, just to test our knowledge that we have gained today. Okay, I do want to take a Crucible tool as as one of the tool as a third agenda, but I doubt that I'll have time for that. But it is something that is coming up. Okay, if not today, it will happen in the next free webinar. Okay, so progressive elaboration. Those of you who are PMP already or have studied for PMP, this is not a new concept. Okay, this is something that has been there in general project management as well. The only thing different in Agile is that it is given a very heavy emphasis in Agile. Okay, because let's first look at the definition of progressive elaboration. So, progressive elaboration is a technique in which the plan of the project is being continuously and constantly modified, detailed, and improved as newer and more improved information is made available. As a result of this new influx of information, the newly revised project management plan has a distinct quality of being more accurate and complete. I've shown this photo of a funnel on the left hand side here. The reason for that is, imagine that you're starting any project starts with a very broad scope outline. Okay, so imagine it as a funnel. Okay, so you're at the top here when you're beginning, and as you find more information, as you do more surveys or you do more research, or you start collecting information from different stakeholders, your the scope of your project starts narrowing and becomes more focused. Okay, which is why it looks like this funnel. Okay, so you start from the top, which is very broad, and as you're finding more information, you're becoming more and more focused so that you're able to deliver exactly what is needed to achieve your goal or to accomplish your mission. Okay. Keep one thing in mind, that the uh, keep one thing in mind, progressive elaboration is uh, is something that is planned, and it is actually uh, thought through before before you know before or at the beginning of the project. So it is not something that is unplanned. It is not something that happens by accident. It is something that is planned throughout the project. I already got a question asking, how it is different from rolling wave planning. It is not different than rolling wave planning. Rolling wave plan an is an actualization of progressive elaboration. So imagine progressive elaboration being a very high level abstract concept, and rolling wave planning is a more tangible action that you take during the project when you're doing your planning, when you're in your planning phase. Okay, but I'm in general, we must keep in mind that progressive elaboration is different than scope creep. A lot of times people, they confuse between those two things. A scope creep is something that happens when you have planned for something, or you had defined a clear, crisp scope when you started working, or started developing, or started implementation. While you were doing that, the scope got added. You were requested to add more features or add more functionalities. Okay, that is a scope creep. Whereas progressive elaboration is a more positive, it's a more broader concept, which is planned, and which is something that is continuous in your project lifecycle. From the agile point of view, it is given a very heavy emphasis, and you can imagine why. Okay, because all this progressive elaboration, as you can see, as a result of new influx of information, the newly revised project management plan has a distinct quality of being more accurate and complete. The whole reason we do iterative development, the whole reason we take feedback, or we have open communication channels to take feedback or give feedback in agile, is the fact that you want to use that feedback. You want to be able to do this continuous and constant modification or detailing of your project plan. Your your project goal still remains the same. Your mission is still the same. Your success criteria of the project is still the same. But you're starting with a broad scope statement, and as you are developing, as you're going through the project, you're able to find more and more information which is useful to improve your project plan, for you to become more focused and be able to really deliver exactly what is needed to achieve that goal. Okay, so this is a progressive elaboration concept. Even though it is abstract and at a high level, it is a very important concept to understand. The rolling wave planning that is there, you may have studied in PMP, is based on this concept. In Agile, all the feedback loops that we have talked about, the feedback loop at the release planning, at the iteration planning, at the test driven development, acceptance test driven development, pair programming, pair negotiation, all those feedback loops, they are based on the concept of progressive elaboration. Okay, all right. So this is, just a high level concept of progressive elaboration. There are, there are many concepts that are linked with it, but we are not going to delve into the details of those. Maybe I can take a separate webinar just on progressive elaboration. Okay, let's move on. Today we are going to focus on agilemanifesto.org. I think I have brought up this website a few times in past. Agilemanifesto.org is the place where formal agile related information, where the formal agile consortium comes together and publishes information. This is also where all the values, there are 4 agile values in Agile Manifesto and 12 agile principles. When you go to that website, you'll see them on the landing page, and they are there on the first page when you go there. Okay, so it's not, it should be very easy for you to access them. What we are going to do today is just go over each one of them. Okay, so this is very important. This is the Bible of Agile. As facilitators, as Scrum Masters or Agile coaches, as project managers, you must know all the 4 values very, very clearly. You must also know all the 12 practices, so 12 principles very clearly. Okay, that is the only way you would be able to succeed in those roles. Okay, so we'll start with the values. The first value is that Agile values individuals and interactions over processes and tools. What does it mean? We have looked at Scrum, we have looked at XP in our past lessons, and we have seen how communication is the backbone of Agile. It is very important to understand that individuals and interactions are going to build a successful product, a software or a product that is actually going to give value to the customer. Processes and tools, they are there to help, but we cannot be hell bent on processes and tools and forget about individuals and interactions. A very good example of this is user stories. So user stories, we I'm going to take a separate session on user stories and user story points in itself. However, we have talked about user stories in so many different concepts and so many different contexts. And each one of you, if you have attended my past webinars, you must know what user story is. Okay, so user story in brief, it's like a requirement. Okay, but it is specified in a very specific, in a very against a very refined template. So in user story, we can write only so much description. And there are three C's of user stories. Okay, card, conversation, and confirmation. Card is where you write the story in the brief, okay, your requirement and brief, which can be understood by anyone. And conversation is a big piece, which is where all these individuals and interactions they come into picture. Okay, this is where people who are actually going to build it, people who actually understand the functional side of it, people who understand the engineering side of it, they are going to come together, they are going to interact in a very rich communicative way. Only then they'll be able to successfully deliver that user story. Okay, so this is just an example how these individuals and interactions are built into all these agile methodologies. Processes and tools, nevertheless, okay, they are also important. Doesn't mean that just because we have motivated individuals and we are interacting or communicating face to face, it doesn't mean that we don't need any processes, doesn't mean that we don't need any tools. We absolutely need them. Processes and tools, they are there to help us expedite the implementation cycle, or they are able to help us adhere to these principles and values in a better way. However, the important thing here is individuals and interactions have more gravity in agile than processes and tools. The second value of agile is that agile values working software over comprehensive documentation. Working software, as we all know, agile has its roots in trying to solve problems with software development and the delivery of software products. So working software is the core of your success. Okay, you cannot uh, rely on comprehensive doc just because you'll have comprehensive documentation or you're documenting everything does not mean that it was going to produce a software which is of value to customer. Okay, so you know a lot of key things here. Okay, so a working software uh, and the engine that is providing value to customer. Okay, so your customers ultimately want want a software that is going to keep them competitive in the marketplace. They're trying to build things that are going to help their users. So in order for you to be able to provide that, you must make sure that you're measuring against a working software. Okay, documentation, again, it is needed. A lot of times people come with this myth about agile, that because we are working in an agile workshop, we don't have to do any documentation. That is absolutely not true. There is there is still need for documentation. However, agile encourages us to use just enough documentation and not get hung up on keeping it very comprehensive. Okay, because documentation can be open for interpretation. it it is difficult to maintain. If you're doing too much documentation, it becomes difficult to maintain, especially in an agile world where things are dynamic, where things can are evolving. The the documentation, if you're doing too in a too comprehensive form, it will become difficult to maintain that. However, you still need design documentation, you still need documentation for deployment, for continuous integration of things of that nature. So it's important to make sure first that your software is working and giving you results what the customer wants, and then worry too much about the documentation. Number 3, Agile values customer collaboration over contract negotiation. I cannot emphasize enough on this particular value. Okay, and this is where a lot of agile teams fall short. Okay, you as agile coaches, when you start doing transformation in your organization or already started doing that, keep this in mind, um, that you know we need a lot of customer collaboration at every step. Last time when we had this webinar, I was explaining acceptance test driven development, where the customer is actually giving you, is not just involved, they are giving you acceptance test scenarios, acceptance test cases, or the acceptance criteria, um, in daily interaction. Every time there's a story that needs to be written or has to be demoed, there's a lot of customer collaboration that is going on. And it's very important to continuously keep customer engaged in everything that you're doing in your project, everything that you're doing in your iterations. It is very, very important. Okay, this is a core value of agile. If you're not able to get the customer to understand the the benefit that we are going to get out of this collaboration, you will not be able to work in an agile mode. Okay, no matter how comprehensive your contract negotiation is. The ultimate goal is to be able to give customer the value or the product that they want, that is going to be useful for them, not something that is documented, not something that what you understood, or not something that you think they would need. It is very important to make sure that customer gives you feedback at a regular interval, and the only way to be able to do that is to make sure that they are engaged in the implementation cycles. Number 4. See, okay, thought I had a question. Okay, number 4, Agile values responding to change over following a plan. I think we all, those of you who get introduced to Agile, I think we all understand this value from the very beginning. So there are, I, I don't like to call it changing requirements, because that is not entirely true when we are working in Agile mode. Uh, what we are trying to do here is we we do plan for things, But we keep that plan, we keep channels open in that plan to take feedback and turn quickly if we have to. So as we are doing development, okay, the whole reason we are doing iterative development, or the whole reason we are keeping the customer engaged, is because we are taking feedback. Okay, as we are taking feedback, we know we are able to respond to any changes that may be needed. Okay, what customer wanted 6 months ago may not be true today. And if you're going back to the customer after 6 months, you would never know when their mind changed. Or even worse is when they would even forget what they had originally asked for. So if you're keeping the customer engaged, you will get the feedback, and you would know if there is any if there's anything that has changed in terms of requirement, in terms of specification, in terms of what was understood to begin with. That change can be easily incorporated if you are working in an iterative mode where customer is engaged. Okay, so you will not have problems responding to change. In a traditional cycle, you took all the requirements from the customer today, you started pounding on that work, you created design, you architected it, started doing development, started doing testing, and now when you have come to the UAT phase, which may be 6 months from today, you realize that you made a mistake in your understanding of the requirement, or you made a mistake when you were writing low level specification. You can imagine this is core reason why the software projects in this traditional form of execution they fail. It's because it is impossible to go back 4 months and change things and expect to deliver that software now. Okay, which is why the core value of agile is to be able to respond to change instead of just blindly following a plan. Okay, any questions on agile values before we start looking at the core principles? Okay, there's a question of working software, how to measure that. So yes, so working software, there are different ways of measuring. There are tools that are available. Most importantly, uh, if you're using tools like Jira or Greenhopper, um, if you're using tools like Cobertura or Eclama, there are all these tools that work off of the technology that you're using. That'll give you code coverage, that'll give you unit test coverage, that will give you how much uh, uh, how many test cases or acceptance test cases have been covered. So that will give you a sense of how the software is working, how uh, in how software is working in the customer's eyes as well. Good question. Okay, let's go on. Sorry. So we are still talking about agilemanifesto.org. Okay, I encourage all of you to go there at least once. Okay, and you'll see all this documented there. I'm not just going to read from the screen, but we'll talk about each one of them just to make sure that we all understand it and appreciate the gravity of it. So there are 12 agile principles. Start with the first one. Okay, and I have written uh, you know you know a short form of every principle so that you are able to remember this as well. Those of you who are interested in taking the ACP exam, it'll be easy for you to remember the short form. The first one is satisfy the customer. I think we have talked enough about this one. But from the principal point of view, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Okay, there's so many key points in this statement. Okay, um, satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery. Okay, continuous delivery is a big mantra these days. It's There are books that are being written just on continuous delivery, not to be confused with continuous integration. Okay, continuous integration is a part of continuous and is a part of being able to successfully deliver continuously. Okay, so continuous delivery is, you're creating software as you have finished creating a particular as you have closed the story. Let's talk, in deep technical terms, agile terms. When you have closed the story, there is no reason that it should not be delivered to the customer. Okay, it is easier said than done, because that whole story has to ship in a bundle. That bundle has to go through the process, through testing, regression, different environments, checks and measures, and only then it can be delivered in production. Okay, but our goal is to be able to fast track that whole cycle. Okay, as a story is closed, you want to quickly deliver it to customer, following the process that you follow. But there are agile tools and principles and values that will help you make that whole cycle shorter. And also, another key point here is valuable software. It's a software that is going to help your customer stay competitive or make profit. If your customer makes profit, you will make profit. Okay. Second principle, welcome change. I think we just talked about it in the fourth value that we were looking at in the previous slide. So, welcoming changing requirements, even late in development. Agile processes harness change for customers' competitive advantage. Okay. We cannot, I mean, this was the whole reason Agile was built in the first place. This is why Agile evolved. Okay. Because we want to be able to deliver on by responding to change. Okay. There are Agile processes, depending on the Agile methodology that you choose, or whichever methodology that you tailor for your needs in your organization. The processes that you follow there must allow changing requirements, okay, or must welcome change in requirements. No one in the Agile workshop should frown if there is a change in requirement. Doesn't mean that we are trying to do scope creep. Okay, there is a difference between scope creep and changing requirements. Changing requirements is that you're able to enhance what was originally requested or make tweaks to what was originally requested. Scope creep is that you have added the scope itself in something that is being built, that was planned, that was designed, and you want to add functionality to it. Okay, it is not an enhancement, but you're expecting a change in the low level specification itself. That is scope creep. Okay, you can there are different ways of handling scope creep as well in Agile, and we have looked at that. One of the ways is that whatever is the delta for added scope, you can create a different story for it, handle it in the next iteration. Another way is that because you all understand that there has been added scope, you re-estimate that story. Okay, make sure you budget enough time for the delta in the running sprint, running iteration, and handle it that way. In order for you to do that, you may have to punt another story that is there in this iteration. Okay, so there are different ways of handling scope creep. However, Changing requirements is something that that has been requested. Also, you had a broad scope, and now you have you have you're requesting an enhancement, or you're requesting a change in what was done before. In traditional cycle, we call it change requests. Okay, there are change requests, but the whole cycle is a bigger cycle in the traditional project management workflow, or traditional project life cycle. And change requests are not welcomed. In agile, change requests are welcomed. Okay, we understand that it is for customers' competitive advantage. Number three, deliver frequently. Deliver working software frequently, from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, with a preference to shorter time scale. So this is again very closely linked with the continuous delivery. So frequent delivery comes with a lot of advantage. You get feedback from the client, you get feedback from your own team. You can do retrospective meetings, if you remember, where you reflect back and you can see. So there are a lot of advantages of being able to deliver software frequently. Okay, that is only when customer would know that they may need a change, or if what is delivered to them is actually of value, what they had planned or what they were anticipating. Number four, collaborate with business. Business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project cycle. In traditional project life cycle, business analysts, they usually come into picture only when they are writing requirements initially, or when they are requesting change requests. In an agile setup, developers, engineers, whether they are QA engineers, test engineers, architects, designers, they all work together, including product owners. So product owner is a sprint Scrum specific term, but product owner still has the same meaning as business analysts or functional people who understand functional, or are subject matter experts on the functional side. It's important that they work together. How they work together in agile, we have seen that when they are writing acceptance criteria, they are making sure that the development engineers and QA engineers together, they understand that. When the QA engineers write the test cases, they product owners or business analysts, they are reviewing the test cases. They understand that all the scenarios are um, are covered or not. Okay, development engineers make sure that they are writing uh, they're writing their unit test cases against those acceptance criteria. If there's a confusion, they have an open channel with the product owner right then, as a part of their team, to make sure that they are able to drive clarity, or remove any confusion, or validate any assumptions. Also, product owners, they have they are talking to customers, and they are enabling engineers in the team to talk to customers directly if needed. So overall, closing a story or working on a story is a collaborative effort that involves interaction with the business people on a day-to-day basis. Number five, motivate. It's pretty simple. Build project teams, build projects around motivated individuals, give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job well done. Now, there are many key points here, keywords here. Okay, so first is motivated individuals. No matter, it's possible that you may use the best of agile tools, you may use best of agile processes, you may have the best of minds who understand agile processes very well, may have the best facilitator, best engineers. Unless they are motivated, unless they understand the goal and they are motivated towards working that goal, and they are passionate about what they're doing, it is not going to make any it's not going to make it a successful product. Okay. And motivation is a whole different theory, uh, and subject in itself, which of course we are not going to delve into. But the important thing here is, in in an agile setup, motivated individuals are what are needed to be to make a project successful, to make it a successful team. And a lot of it has to do with trust. I cannot just I don't want to ignore the trust keyword here. Trust has a very heavy weightage in agile. Okay, a lot of things they happen on trust everywhere, whether between all the stakeholders, whether it is customer and product owners, customers and engineers, engineers and QA engineers, architects, product owners. There's a lot of trust that is needed. Unless that trust is there, there will be no motivation. If there's no motivation, no matter how agile you want yourselves to be, you will not be able to reach agility. Number six, communicate face to face. The most effective and efficient method of conveying information to and within the development team is face to face conversation. I think we talked about this when we were talking about osmotic communication and the communication modes and all. So face to face communication, it delivers the message in the richest form. Okay, there's a lot of information that is being conveyed from the body language. There's a lot of information that is being conveyed by the tone of voice. So it's important. These days we have distributed teams, which are working on software, and it becomes difficult to have a face-to-face conversation. But then we have all these tools that are available. Telecommunication has come a very long way, which is why distributed teams, they are a fact of life these days. So I strongly encourage, at least place where I work, I always try to do a video conference or a webcam chat every time I have to interact with somebody who's not physically present where I am. So I always encourage face to face communication. And it is i- it's a fact that it is going to convey you the most effective and efficient information. Okay, looks like there's a question. Is agile suited for virtual teams? Yes, it is suited for virtual teams, which is what I was just explaining. uh, Maybe 10 years ago it was difficult to bring agility to a distributed team, but now we have all these tools, we have all these software agile tools and communication tools that are available that can provide you with facilities to doing face-to-face conversation. Okay, number 7, measure software. And we looked at the second value on 2 slides ago. Working software is primary measure of progress. Okay, so there are tools available to measure software, like I was talking about. I work in a J2E environment, J2E workshop, and there are few other different technologies also that we use. But we are able to use Eclama as our you know measure of software quality. Also, we are able to use different continuous integration tools. There are tools that we have developed in house that tell us what is the coverage of the acceptance test cases. Okay, which is what the customer really care about. So if your acceptance test case measure says that you have 90% passed the acceptance test cases before release, that means your working software is 90% up to par to what customer needs. Okay, so software is your primary measure of progress, nothing else. Number 8, sustainable pace. Agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain constant pace indefinitely. This is something we talked about when we talked about velocity a few weeks ago. Uh, you know, it's velocity is something that a team can work uh, on a sustainable pace indefinitely, on a constant pace indefinitely. Okay, just because in a particular iteration you worked over time, or you killed yourself, or you put in more resources to put out more value in your product, doesn't mean that you'll be able to do it iteration after iteration. Okay, which is why a sustainable pace is what you want to achieve. It will bring more forecast, it will bring more predictability in your deliverables in future. Number 9, continuous design or refactoring. Continuous attention to technical excellence is and good design enhances agility. And I have talked about this many times, that design and refactoring is a continuous thing in uh, in any kind of software development. Only then you can become agile. If you see that there is a class that needs to be broken down, or there is some design pattern that is not implemented, that needs to be implemented, or there is something wrong with the architecture of certain things, sometimes it may be difficult, but it is better to take the hit now and not let the technical debt build up. Okay, the whole reason you're doing this is so that you can keep the technical debt down. And in a traditional way of project execution, the technical debt builds up very quickly. If we are paying attention to design and refactoring on a continuous basis, a good example is opportunistic refactoring. Those of you who know what it is, it's being able, you know doing refactoring as you come about it. Okay, you should not create a separate story just to fix a design. You should not create a separate story just to uh, implement a particular design pattern. It should be done as a part of the story that is touching that piece of code. Maybe a functional story, but if it is touching a piece of code that needs a little bit of tweak, a little bit of refactoring, it should be done right at that moment. If everybody does that in the team, there'll be a gradual increase in the health of the software product. Okay, which is agility. Number 10, keep it simple. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. So we don't want to uh, we every time, especially software engineers, they have this tendency of trying to build something that is infinitely scalable or infinitely flexible. Okay, and in order to do that, they lose the lean thinking. They lose the fact that you're trying to build something that is going to give you that's going to provide value to the customer. You may end up you know providing things in the product that may be very cool, but they're not really giving any value to the customer. And this happens every day. I'm going to take a separate session on lean thinking, on lean principles itself, and we'll talk more about that in that session. Number 11, team creates architecture. Okay, the best architectures, requirements, and design emerge from self-organizing teams. Self-organizing teams is a keyword here. It goes back to team empowerment and how there's a difference between project manager and facilitator. There's a difference in the mindset in traditional and agile way of thinking. project manager in traditional way is the sole authority, is responsible for the whole project, approves decisions, approves change requests, approves design, etc., etc. In agile workshop, project manager becomes a facilitator, which is a stronger role, which is a more acceptable role and more collaborative role than project manager. The power or the authority is not bottlenecked by this role. Team has the authority. Because team has the authority doesn't mean that they can do whatever they want. Okay, it still has to be controlled, but it gives team a sense of empowerment. Okay, which opens up their mind, which makes them more creative, which makes them more collaborative. They develop a more positive chemistry, and only when they become self-organizing teams they are able to produce best architecture, best design. Very important principle. Okay, this is something which is very hard to achieve, but it is something that we should all try for. And last one, and definitely not the least, retrospect. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts itself to adjust its behavior accordingly. This goes back to the retrospective meeting or retro that we have talked about a few times already, in Scrum, in XP, and all that. So, because you're doing this on a regular interval, you are able to tune and you are able to learn from it and not make the same mistake again. Because you're working in iterative mode, you get ample opportunity to correct yourself, to inculcate better habits. And once you inculcate those habits, you become more and more efficient. And if you become more efficient, the team becomes more efficient and you're able to deliver more value to the customer. Again, I'll just emphasize that these four values and 12 principles, this is what really makes agile. That's it. Everything else that we learn, they are, either tools or techniques or processes or how a particular methodologies have implemented these values and principles. As project managers, as facilitators, you must understand all 12 of these principles and four values. Okay, this is something that should be burnt in your brain as you are working through any project or product. Okay, any questions? Okay, there's a question on sustainable pace. Yeah, velocity is something that tells you how much work a team can do, how many story points a team can deliver in a particular iteration. That is velocity. Sustainable pace is, that velocity should be sustainable over a period of multiple iterations. That is sustainable pace for the same team structure. Okay, looks like there's a question on frequent delivery. Yeah, so frequent delivery, we are talking about releases or how soon we show uh, the stories that we have built for the customer, how soon we show it to them. So the more frequently we show it to them, the more frequently we are able to close them, more quickly we are able to release it to them. Okay, yes, customer collaboration. I don't know if it is a principal collaboration. Yeah, collaboration with business meaning collaboration with the 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 stakeholders who are actually going to use this functionality, or the business analysts, the functional experts, functional subject matter experts. That is what is meant by business people here. Okay, I know it was a lot of theory, but it is I hope you understand how important it is to understand all these principles and values. Okay, let's look at some of the questions. Please go ahead, read. There are four questions. Oh, I see there's a question for me. How do you define scope creep separate from story evolution? So there's no such thing as story evolution. Once a story is written, once it has a description, once it has an acceptance criteria, that story is expected to be written and ready for implementation. It is not something that is expected to evolve. Okay, I think you meant evolving requirements. I think that's what you meant by that. So when the requirements evolve, it may if you're putting that evolved requirement in the existing story itself, that is scope creep. Okay, which you should avoid. Instead, what you want to do is you want to create another story, which may be an enhancement on top of what you're doing right now, so that you can build on top of that. Okay, hopefully that answers that question. All right, let's look at some sample questions. We are short on time. We have about 3 more minutes left. Because we started late, we'll take another 5 more minutes and we'll finish it off. Okay, so there are four sample questions. Please read them and send me your answers in the questions box or the comments box. Okay, I see most of you have answered, and most of you have answered it correctly. The correct answer is C. I'm sorry, I have it written wrong here on the slide. Please ignore this. The correct answer is C, progressive elaboration. The It can be confused with evolving requirements, but the key here is to see that there are the HR group who's actually building this project is actually going after people. It is a planned activity. They're doing a second round of to take feedback, or second round of survey, It is a planned activity. Okay, so that they know they are able to uh, elaborate, they are able to detail their project plan. So progressive elaboration is the correct answer. Sorry about the incorrect answer printed here on the slide. Okay, next question. Okay, awesome. Every single one of you got it right. Who answered? The correct answer is D. Following a fixed plan without distraction is not an agile value. Everything else is. Another question. Okay, I see. I'm getting mixed response. Okay, so it's a mix of progressive elaboration or scope creep or evaluate. The correct answer is A, scope creep. The key thing here to remember is that you started out with a very clear scope of 5 core features. Okay, and it is very clearly told here that now you want 10 features in this project. An evolving requirement would have been that you build this 5 in this phase or in this release and then build 5 more. Okay, progressive elaboration is something that is planned. This is unplanned. So this is an example of a scope creep. Okay, even though it is not talking exactly in terms of stories, but the fact that you have added scope, you have added features in an existing release is an example of a scope creep. Okay, last question. Okay, we'll adjourn this meeting after this. Very good. Everybody got it right. Correct answer is D. Contract negotiation with the customer is not a core agile principle. Everything else is. Okay. So thank you so much for joining. I know we went over 5 minutes. Sorry about starting late, but I hope that this was very useful. You know, this is the core of agile. Um, this